old iron gates slammed shut with a finality that reverberated through the entire compound. Prison echoes. A forced start. The prisoner had crossed the threshold from the world of the free into a reality of unyielding confinement. Behind those imposing walls, the prisoner's identity became irrelevant. No name would matter here. Only numbers would define existence. The thick, oppressive air inside the prison was infused with the stench of sweat, iron, and fear, all blending together to create an atmosphere of despair. This was no ordinary prison. It was a fortress, built with the sole purpose of containing the worst of the worst, individuals who dared to defy the law and the established order. It was a place designed to break spirits, to strip away any semblance of humanity, and transform the individual into a mere shadow of their former self. But as the prisoner stood motionless, shackled and alone in the heart of the prison's labyrinthine corridors, the possibility of breaking free seemed like a far-off dream. To the outsider, it would have appeared impossible. The guards, stationed at every turn, each with a cold, calculating gaze, were always watching, always waiting for even the smallest slip-up. The surveillance system, intricate and unforgiving, ensured that no corner of the prison was left unmonitored. Cameras were mounted on every wall, and the faintest movement triggered an alarm. Prisoners here lived in isolation. The cells, tiny and suffocating, offered little more than a narrow cot and a cold, damp stone floor. The hours bled together as the routine took hold. Meals were sparse and tasteless, the days long and monotonous. The rhythm of prison life was oppressive morning roll calls, brutal exercise routines, and the constant hum of machinery that seemed to pulse through the walls. The guards would march through, their boots echoing as they passed by, their presence a constant reminder of the unforgiving reality of incarceration. But within this oppressive environment, something began to stir. Beneath the surface of captivity, a plan was forming quietly, methodically, with the precision of a mind determined to break free. It was the slow, deliberate recognition of flaws in the system, of cracks in the prison's impenetrable structure. What was once considered impenetrable began to reveal its vulnerabilities, just as the prisoner's mind adapted to the grim surroundings, searching for a way out. In the early days of confinement, the prisoner was numb, disoriented, and consumed by despair. But, with time, the monotony of prison life became a backdrop for observation.
Every motion, every shift in the air, every faint whisper of the guards' conversations, nothing was overlooked. Small details were noted, the moments when a guard's attention wavered, when the pattern of patrols shifted, when an unexpected noise broke the endless silence of the prison. The routines, at first stifling, became a kind of rhythm that could be bent, manipulated. The prisoner had learned to listen, to watch, to wait for the right moment. Days turned into weeks, then into months. The dull ache of confinement gradually began to fade, replaced by a simmering determination. The walls, that once seemed so insurmountable, now appeared as mere obstacles to be surmounted, each one offering a clue, a weakness, a chance. The prisoner's mind, sharp and calculating, began to map the prison with an intensity that only the direst of circumstances could inspire. The layout of the cells, the hidden passageways, the blind spots in the surveillance system, each piece of the puzzle fell into place. With each passing day, the plan evolved, grew more refined, more audacious. It was no longer a question of survival. It was a question of escape. At the same time, the prisoner was not alone. There were others, though not many, who harbored the same restless energy. Some had been broken by the system, their spirits crushed by years of torment. But others, like the prisoner, still burned with the desire for freedom. The subtle interactions between these individuals were just as important as the physical observations. A glance exchanged in the mess hall, a nod in the yard. These moments, small as they were, could signal the beginning of something much bigger.
A few had tried to escape before, with disastrous results. The stories of failed attempts haunted the prison like ghosts, whispers of men who had dared to dream of freedom and had paid the price with their lives. The prisoner knew that failure was not an option. Every move had to be calculated. Every step had to be perfect. Any mistake would be fatal. But the prisoner was not without resources. Time, though endless, could be harnessed, manipulated. The walls that confined the prisoner were also the walls that could be used, twisted to become part of the strategy. The guards, predictable as they were, would eventually make a mistake. And when that moment came, the prisoner would be ready.
In the shadows of the prison's depths, hidden from view, the first inklings of the escape began to take shape. The prisoner's journey from a nameless face in the crowd to the mastermind of a legendary escape had begun. The story of this escape would not be written in books or told around campfire sit would become something much greater. It would become history's greatest escape. As the day wore on, the prisoner's thoughts drifted to the future, a future where the prison walls no longer held sway. But for now, there was still much to be done. The journey had only just begun, and every step forward would be a test of will, of intelligence, and of courage. The road to freedom would be long, fraught with peril. But for now, it was enough to know that the first steps had been taken. There was no turning back. This marks the first chapter of the prisoner's journey and introduction to the bleak and unforgiving reality of their life behind bars, setting the stage for what is to come. The subtle hints of the escape plan that is beginning to take shape build anticipation for the trials and tribulations ahead. The story will continue to unfold as the prisoner navigates the brutal world of incarceration, slowly but surely moving toward the escape that will etch their name into history. Prison walls breathed, lived, aged. It pulsed with a rhythm of its own, a cold, calculated system designed to dominate every heartbeat of those trapped inside. The structure itself was a marvel of oppression. Set on the outskirts of civilization, the prison rose from the earth like a monument to fear, its foundation dug deep into the bedrock, layered with reinforced concrete and embedded steel. The outer perimeter stretched wide, massive boundary patrolled by armed guards, infrared motion sensors, and high-voltage fences. Beyond that, natural defenses, jagged cliffs, thick forested terrain, and icy waters that swallowed anyone foolish enough to attempt escape. From the outside, it appeared impenetrable. Inside, it was a labyrinth corridors that twisted like the veins of a monster, passageways that led to nowhere, and dead ends that whispered of forgotten prisoners.
Each block of the prison was separated by blast-proof doors and monitored checkpoints, operated by guards who followed their roles with mechanical precision.
Their uniforms were spotless, their routines robotic,
Their empathy non-existent.
The cell blocks were divided by a brutal hierarchy. The lower wings held the more compliant, watched but not suffocated. The upper tiers, the maximum security levels, were the most dangerous, and the most defiant were buried alive. The prisoner had been placed in one such unit, nestled in the coldest, farthest corner of the prison. Isolation here was both a punishment and a strategy.
It was the place where resistance went to die.
Yet the prisoner resisted, not with noise, not with rebellion, but with observation. Every day became an investigation, every moment a chance to gather intel.
Eyes traced the guards' paths, clocked their rotations, noted their lapses. One guard, slightly slower than the others. Another, distracted when checking his watch.
A third, whose gaze faltered during meal rounds. Small details, insignificant to most. But to a mind sculpted by desperation, they were the seeds of something greater. The prisoner began to recreate the layout not on paper, which would be confiscated, but within the mind. Memory sharpened into precision. Cell count per block.
Distance from the mess hall to the surveillance room. Number of steps between checkpoints. Which walls echoed back sound. Which doors took longer to lock. And in the silent hours of night, lying still on a stiff cot, the map unfolded over and over, each corridor visualized, every guard shift rehearsed like choreography.
Surveillance was everywhere. In the ceilings, behind false panels, even in the corners of communal areas. A single mistake could mean solitary, or worse. But no system, no matter how advanced, was perfect. The prisoner noticed a pattern. Once every 4 days, between 2:17 and 2:23 in the morning, there was a flicker in the hallway, feed a momentary glitch in the cameras just outside Block E3. 6 minutes of blind opportunity. No explanation ever came. Perhaps a maintenance oversight. Perhaps an old wiring issue in a building older than it looked. But it was real, and it was consistent. The security network was rumored to be controlled from a heavily fortified room deep within the West Wing off limits to all prisoners and most staff.